This is the War Room Roundtable podcast, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and relevant businessmen and women on the planet. Hear their stories and get the most important business lessons they've learned on the road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their successes into your life and business. The War Room Roundtable is brought to you by your hosts, Jason Miller, CEO of Strategic Advisor Board, and Phillip Lanos, CEO of Own the Rhythm, and former podcast host for Entrepreneurial and Inc. magazine. Welcome to the War Room, Patricia. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You know, the way we like to start the show off is by asking if you come from a family of entrepreneurs, creatives, working professionals, any of the above?
I'd say working professionals. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. My mom was a working professional, but then actually branched out and kind of became an entrepreneur in Manhattan, doing a business that was making quadruple what she was making in an office. I don't know if you're familiar with Manhattan, but dog walking and dog boarding is a huge business there, and it's all cash business. So she was making a lot of money doing that. So she did that. My dad, he always worked for, union jobs. So, he was always a worker. But yeah, my mom was that go-getter who, saw an opportunity and jumped on it.
If there's any city you can do that in, it's New York. I know that firsthand. I was living there for about 5 years before I moved back to LA. I still think about New York every day.
I'm born and raised.
Right on. Are you still in New York now?
I'm born and raised in Manhattan, but for the past 20 years now, I'm in Long Island, which is a hop, skip, and a jump from Manhattan anyway.
Yeah.
Still New York.
It's a nice change of pace. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, good, happy medium.
So we have this as your background. Now, where does it start to become more of a reality for you that I'm going to go into business? Did you go through a couple of careers before doing that, or just started off that way?
Ironically, I'm such a creature of habit. So out of high school, I had a job and I started there from the ground up. I was a single mom of 2 small kids. So I just had a job that gave me medical and I needed that. But with that, it's not like I woke up and said, I want to go into marketing or IR, PR. It was just the job that I had. But I actually fell in love with it just watching everybody around me. It wasn't the same type of work that you just wake up every day, answer phones. You never know what your day has in store until you open up your emails. So it was always this fast-paced, something happening every day. So I wound up working my way up the corporate ladder there. I stayed there for 16 years. Again, creature of habit. Unless you kick me out, I was comfortable. It was all good. So after 16 years, the company was actually closing their doors. So I said, okay, well, now I have to look for another job. But the ironic part was that company was an agency and they did investor relations, public relations, media relations, and marketing. So when I went to look for a job, I'd go to an investor relations company, but all they did was maybe annual reports or annual meetings. And I remember saying there's so much more that we do. So I'd go to a public relations company trying to pitch for a job, but all they did was advertising. So I said, well, this is really ironic because I do so much more than that. So I wound up joining forces with another company, which was a proxy solicitation company. So they did one of the services that we didn't do. And I thought, okay, well, I can come with you guys and make this a full service agency. So that was a win-win. I joined forces there. But the crazy part was that they got the majority of their proxy work from the internal investor relations teams at their clients. So I wasn't allowed to really say I did investor relations because they were afraid that they would lose business. So I said, okay, well, what happened was when I joined that company, every client I had followed me, which was really cool because they appreciated the work I did. So I had clients, which was cool, but I couldn't grow anything there. So anyway, ironically, I've been doing the remote thing long before COVID because since I really didn't have anything to do with that company, when it came time for them to need the office space, they kind of told me, well, why don't you just work from home? We need the space. So I wound up doing that. I wound up, kind of working from home, but still under that company. So then after 6 years of working there, they were now going to be selling their business to someplace in New Jersey. I'm thinking, all right, well, now I'm going to have to commute every day from Long Island to New Jersey. There's no train. I'd have to do this by car. I'd be sitting 2 hours a day in traffic. I'm like, all right, well, now that puts me in a position. Do I just continue what I'm doing just by myself, or do I do this? So I wound up just that was the scariest part, because I was like, you always second guess yourself. But I said, every client followed me the first time. So I pretty much had a conversation with them. And I said, if I just did this nothing changes. I'm still doing the same work from the same place. The only difference is who the check gets met out to. Other than that, nothing changes. So they gave me a chance, and it wound up being successful. And that's what I was doing ever since.
Wow. So you have this whole journey where you were really bringing the value to the script. Obviously, nobody does anything alone, but for the most part, it's like you said, you'd go to one place and they were kind of only really doing this.
Yeah.
And then another, and the same missed opportunities. And so everywhere you went, you knew that there was more value to deliver. And yet, when these companies decided to fold or sell or what have you, all the people, because people like working with people that they like, right? The last thing someone wants to do is have to explain their entire brand, their objectives, everything. It's just as expensive. It could potentially be just as expensive as having to retrain a new employee at someone's company, which everyone knows is the most expensive thing in business. Attrition is crazy, right? So why do that?
Yeah. Well, the crazy part is, like I always say, if there's a need for something, how can I fix this? So I wind up doing everything. Like even at one point I was doing website design and maintenance, not because I had nothing else better to do, but because the clients that I had, their internal IT department would handle their website. So say, for example, they had a proxy form or a quarterly earnings release or whatever the case may be. I would spend all day long going back and forth to their IT people saying where to put this on the website, because they don't understand the product. They just know IT. So it got to the point where I was just wasting so much time. I was like, oh, forget it. I'll just do it myself. So I started taking on that job as well. So I think for some companies, if they have their own internal teams, that's great. I tell them, here's everything that I can do. You tell me what you need me to do. If you want me to do it all, that's great too. But if you want me to work in bits and pieces, I'm happy to work with your internal team too. I'm not here to step on anybody's toes. So some people do just say do it all. Because what I also found before is that if you had an internal IR team or an internal PR team or an internal marketing team, and we're all doing something totally different, a lot of times people get territorial. They think, oh, she's stepping on my toes. She's going to steal my work. I'm not an internal person from a company here to get brownie points from anybody. I'm the inside person working for the company that hired me. We all have the same goal. So what happens is you have 3 different departments pitching 3 different stories to the world. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense. So, I do appreciate when companies work together. We're all a team. We all have the same goal. Whether I'm doing it all or I'm just doing bits and pieces, that's all fine with me. I love what I do, and, keeps me going.
Yeah, no, 100% right. It's like trying to ask 3 different coders who design a website from 3 different places at 3 different times to then work on each other's code. That's like asking for problems. I know exactly what you're talking about. With that said, before we go any further, I want to check in with Jason and hear some of his reflections on your journey.
Okay.
I always love that most like entrepreneurial experiences are typically born out of something that ended abruptly, and then a skill was taken forward, and then there was this like aha moment, right? Of, wait a minute, why am I going to make that guy rich or that gal rich or whatever when I can just do this myself, right? And then you realize, as soon as you get into it, wow, this is kind of hard.
Yeah.
but you figure it out eventually, right? You figure it out, and then that typically will set you on your way. But I would say that it's a good majority, right, of people that decide to, really jump off that cliff into entrepreneurialism is because it was a forcing function to do so at some point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the record of the last couple of years now, that cliff was overflowing for a while with people bailing off of it, right? Because they had to figure something out. And yes, with those times came a lot of shady things that were born with them and so on and so forth, but there was a lot of good too. So you got to take the good with the bad, but a lot of the, people that I interact with, people that have been on this podcast, so on and so forth. It seems like the stories always align a bit, right? They're just a little different narrative. So,
Yeah.
And it's great to see people that have taken something and built upon it and been able to help a lot of people, because the goal should always be to change the world somehow, somehow, some way, or at least know that you're a piece of that pie to change it somehow.
Yeah.
In some way. So I can appreciate your journey.
Yeah, it's actually, I don't know if you could see behind me, but I just published the book. It says Life's Obstacles Can Be Your Biggest Motivators. And I actually have that purpose of trying to help people, because that's always been my nature. How can I help people? It's just always been who I am. And one thing that I always found ironic when people look at me, they always just think they have me all figured out. They just say, oh, she's always had it handed to her. Life's been easy for her, blah, blah, blah. They have absolutely no idea what I've gone through. I mean, I was a single mom of 2 kids, 0 support, almost died in an accident, was almost homeless at one point. I mean, I just gone through so much that a lot of people would have quit, but I pushed through. And, the whole point of the book isn't, it's really just to teach people that if you're going through hard times or bad things, stick it out. You're not alone. There's other people who've been through it too. And it's just giving them motivation to say things can work out if you just really just keep chugging along and, believe in yourself. Don't worry about somebody else believing in you. You're what's important. Believe in yourself and, stick it out and you'll be okay.
I think there's definitely something to be said about entrepreneurs, the ones that actually do succeed. There's this point in their own psychology where they get to a place where it's not about gritting their teeth and flying by the seat of their pants anymore. At some point, they just accept that they are committed to achieving their desired result. And it's not a question of if, but when for them at that point. And I feel like that personality shift is the ultimate determinant of who stays in business and who doesn't. With that said, in the spirit of things, and congratulations on publishing your book. When it comes to PR in particular, right now, there's a time when many people are tapping into that resource and hoping that it gets them where they want to go. And like you said, most agencies are just doing some form of advertisement. Yeah. Right. Now, you have a different slant, a different view on the roles that PR is supposed to play in someone's overall game plan. Can you sort of elaborate on that? Because I feel like that's like bottom line, something that it would be a missed opportunity if I didn't ask.
Sure. Well, I think, when people say like marketing, I think it all plays a role together. So say with public relations and marketing, it just has different angles. I mean, with public relations and marketing, you have your digital marketing, you have your influencer marketing. I mean, there's just so many different forms to it, and people have to incorporate all of it. I know some people who will just post something online, maybe once or twice a day and call it a day. They think they've done their due diligence. It's so much more than that. You have to have interaction. You have to, and nowadays with digital marketing and AI and technology and whatnot, there's so much that you can really, investigate. You can find out, who your ideal customer or your ideal client or whatnot, who they are, where they are, where are they getting their information from? And you can get your name right out there. So say maybe you're a water company and you have someone who's a health nut or somebody who's, conscious about the world, ESG and whatnot. So you might have 3 different messages for your same product, but 3 different messages for 3 different potential clients, what they're searching for. You can get that information out there using technology. And really just start really creating dialogue. And, then you can find out, like, are people going to your website? Where did they get their information from? How long did they stay? What interested them? So it really has come such a long way, but it's, it's not just a matter about posting things. And, some people, they think that if they did like bare minimum or what's legally required, say, that they've done just enough, and it's not. I mean, even with like media exposure, it's not what it used to be. Years ago, you can get reporters that were interested in a company or product and write a story. Majority of it now is paid media. What's left is, 25%, maybe 15% of that are contributors who might be your competitor writing about themselves. So now you've got 10% of reporters that are getting bombarded with pitches. So there's a lot of online social media which you could say, okay, I've never heard of them before. And that's okay, but that's where the marketing comes in. So you got your little public relations where they wrote a story on this little no-name blog or whatever the case may be, but that's where the marketing comes in, that you circulate that across the masses. And now with social media, I mean, even Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, I mean, there's groups for every single thing. And then you have the various ways to get the information out there. If you're a visual person, maybe TikTok or Instagram. If you're more writing, you can make a blog, you could be on Twitter, you could be on LinkedIn. I mean, you just have to always be creative and find like where everybody's at. And, some people just say they want their product or their business to just go to the world. And that's great, but you want to really segment that. Who would be the ideal people? Because you can't just spam everybody. If they don't care, they're going to just block you. So you really want to segment who are the ideal people, where are they, how can I get my message in front of them and be consistent. Just posting something once a day, once a week, once a month, it's not enough.
You're so right. Some people use it as a one-way platform when it's social media. It's literally defined by social aspects. And yeah, most people just, it's cool. Like putting content out is super important, but not enough people engage with people, right? That's probably in fact, if you just did more engaging and less posting of content in general, you'd probably get further along. That's the crazy thing.
Well, it's not always about, like one of the issues that I always have with people is they always think it's all about them, but it's not about you at all. It's about who your customer or who your client is. It's about them. What do they want? So you have to put information out there, like, and everything's automated now. So like I can basically set social media platforms across all of my platforms a month in advance. I don't have to physically do this all day long, but they'll also give you ideas like certain things like today was National Pizza Day or tomorrow's National Teachers Day or just things like that I would have never in a million years even knew. But, they give you this. So again, it's not about me. It's like, how do I get my message in front of people? So maybe there is, a pizza, maybe there's a restaurant who needs marketing. So as I put Happy National Pizza Day, hashtag blah, 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 that now gets in front of maybe a pizza shop who needs their marketing, so you kind of have to really evolve with the times,
Yeah, no, I like the holistic view that you bring to the work that you do. And if people are listening, they'll understand that you bring a different flavor of work than the boilerplate, extra vanilla, whatever that might be out there that people are used to getting. And I think that stands to reason that people can pick that up from what you said.
Well, it's a lot too. Like I had a conversation with someone recently where they say it's time consuming, and it is. But you can do like if say you had a month and someone said, I'm going to give you the first of the month, I'm going to give you 2 hours of my time, and that's it. I can do so much in that 2 hours that I could take bits and pieces and snippets and brush that across an entire month worth of work. You could maybe do an interview like this, a video interview. And then I could take snippets of that. I could transcribe it. I could put that into various little social media blasts. I could put that into a blog. I could put that into an art. I mean, there's just so much that you could do to it if you get creative, so it is time consuming, but at the end of the day, you have to do it. I mean, not everybody's going to knock on your door if they don't know who you are.
Yeah, no, this is valid. Now, with that said, I want to take a quick break to give a shout out to someone that's making this conversation right now of going this deep into PR and marketing and your journey possible. And that is someone who is not only a community member of SAB, but also a listener and a contributor now by making this conversation possible. Her name is Stephanie Emmett. And her message to people who are listening is if you're a solopreneur spending hours with DIY, and I think you'll be able to appreciate this. If you've been saying things like, I don't know what I should be doing. I'm doing everything and nothing works. I get engagement, but no sales. Email doesn't work anymore. All that is very, very in line with this conversation. If that sounds like you, she also has a program that she developed called the Startup to Six Figures Mentorship. And it's essentially clear, precise, exact steps to help you get over that analysis paralysis. So you can go to The Right Stephanie, that's WRITE, therightstephanie.com, enter War Room, get a 10% discount on your first engagement with them. And in the spirit of that, I'd also like for you to let people know where they can get a hold of you, Patricia, if they want to connect with you and engage with a different flavor of marketing, PR, and such.
Sure. Well, I actually have my website is PBARONWSKI.com. PristineAdvisors.com. Also have a company website, PristineAdvisers.com. That's PristineAdvisers.com. I'm all over social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I mean, you could find all of my platforms across the websites.
Okay, awesome. And now, bottom line, there's only two questions really left. Bottom line, if you have to leave some advice behind for anyone listening, what is your go-to bottom line no matter what?
I always say just constantly continue learning. I'm like always a perfectionist. I love learning. I mean, I graduated high school valedictorian, graduated college 4.0. I just always love learning. But I think it's important because nowadays the world changes so fast and it's evolving nonstop. And if you just say, okay, here's my plan A, B, C, and I'm good to go, and that's it, and you don't continuously learn and evolve, you're going to be left behind. Like I'm always looking, like even in my position, what are people looking for in a position? So they might say, okay, well, you have to have A, B, and C skills. Well, if I don't have those skills, obviously I need them. So I'll learn how to do them. And you have to do that, So I just say, never stop learning.
Yeah, no, we were just talking about this on our last call on how people try to hold on to what works in business. Jason has this conversation with people every day, and he's like, so before I go to the grand finale, I want to check in with Jason.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point because I always consider myself a lifelong learner, right? And, my opinion is when we stop learning, we stop innovating. When we stop innovating, we're not on the bleeding edge, and then we die. Not die as people, but I mean, our businesses start to degrade, right? Because a lot of people like to live, in the comfort zone area of business. And that is a horrible place to be. I'm not saying live out on the bleeding edge. That's not what I'm saying. But you got to be out there quite a bit. And then you come back to the leading edge, right? But where you bleed, you innovate, right?
Yeah.
Because that's bloody. That's where nobody's out there innovating, and you get punched in the throat all these things, and you fail and you learn lessons and you do all these things. But then that's what creates the next best thing, right? So, I couldn't agree with you more that learning is extremely important. And if you're not doing that, you're on your way to death as a business.
For sure.
Yeah, no, for me, I think this was a sobering conversation, one that many need to reflect on if they didn't really understand that. Like, just take a hard look at what you're doing, especially if you're having trouble right now in business, and just ask yourself, what have I been doing? That's always the way things have been done that I need to start questioning.
I hate that saying.
Yeah, that's the way we've always done it. Wow.
But that's where people get comfortable. And it's like, you have to just break out of your comfort zone. Like I was saying, even with, social media, there's certain people, like I'll follow them. And, one person, it's funny. Someone was talking about influencer marketing. And I'm like, honestly, that is an influencer marketing, but would I ever buy into them? Like, not at all. But they're doing exactly what everybody should be doing. They're creating something that everybody loves, whether I like it or not, it doesn't matter. They're doing exactly, and they're consistent. And all of a sudden, it's like overnight they get 1 million followers. It's like because they're doing it right, So you have to get out of your comfort zone. Yeah,
and I've always thought that the right influencer aligned with what it is that you're trying to do will save you, I don't know how much money, as opposed to just running campaigns that you have to build data for anyways, or you can just speak to an influencer. What happens is people will go and get any influencer they think they can get for cheap, and then that defeats the whole purpose of an influencer marketing what you're doing.
Everybody wants to take a shortcut, and you know what? It's kind of funny because it will come out in the end. Like when the company that I worked for 16 years, I became the scapegoat because everybody knew I needed the job, and I was the one who was busting my butt, working 18-hour days, leaving to go pick up my kids to come back. Everybody else was leaving half days. They just knew how they got it. And at the end of the day, when the company closed, there were a lot of people who were in trouble, and, it paid off for me. So taking the shortcut is not always the right way to go.
Yeah. No, I mean, it'd be the equivalent of us paying Barstool Sports to feature our show on their show, only to find out like nobody who was like drinking beers and talking about sports, not even playing sports, with their buddies, and that show is going to be remotely interested in a business-based podcast. Yeah. And yet companies do that all the time because, well, that's an influencer. They have followers.
Yeah, but you pick and choose your battles. Yeah.
Yeah, that alignment is way off, and somehow people always miss the mark, especially business owners. But with that said, go ahead.
You can head for the mountains of Bush. Yeah, how far that gets you.
Yeah. No, man. I think this has been a really fascinating conversation, and the grand finale for us here, Patricia, is if you could have invited anybody to this conversation today, based on all the things we touched on, who would you have loved to have had here to listen to your journey? Is it the companies who missed out?
Exactly. Actually, that is a good answer. There were a lot of people who kind of, took advantage and looked the other way. And, I had I'll give an example. I've had a lot of people who know that I know what I'm doing, and they would say, okay, can you put together a business marketing plan for us and we'll review? And I put together this whole big analysis, give it to them. And they're like, okay, thank you, bye. Well, if you really know how to do what I put in there, I would see your name everywhere. So just because you stole the actual process, if you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to do it. So yeah, if they were all on this show right now, I'd be like, how's that working out for you?
I actually can resonate a lot with what you just said. I can't tell you the number of times where people have asked me for a proposal, which is really their way of having an outline of what they need to do without paying for anything. And then I still see them repeat the same things. They never even act on it. And it really makes me sad that people think that like they could just do that and get away with that and what that means, especially when someone takes the time to really understand the material. Because just because you have the outline doesn't mean you understand strategically what you're supposed to do with this. And then they try and throw it to someone internally, and they're like, I don't know, this isn't even my plan. So I think it's a beautiful sentiment for something that's just unkind. If somebody's out there and they're going to give you what you need to take your marketing and business to the next level, see it through. That's a very powerful message, because the right person can save you like 10 years and a lot of campaign money. So
for sure.
Those are my closing thoughts, but it's tradition right here for Jason to close this out. So I'll turn it over to him.
Yeah. I mean, great conversation, great story, and some good little nuggets I hope that people picked up in there for sure in the audience, because you've had a fantastic entrepreneurial experience, and I look forward to seeing where you go from here.
Thank you.
Because there's always the next, right? Always the next. And more importantly, thank you for taking the time to come on the show with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Right on.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the War Room Roundtable with your hosts, Jason Miller and Phillip Lanos. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and always remember, if you can dream it and believe it, then you can go achieve it. We'll see you in the next episode.